Hello, welcome to Out of the Comfort Zone. I'm your host, RB Kelly, and you're watching ThinkTec Hawaii on OC16 television. Now today we have a really cool guest, but speaking of being punched in the face, I am really excited for our guest today. Coach, we have with us Coach Eiichi Jumawan.
Hi, how you doing?
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here actually, but can you explain for our viewers exactly what it is that you do?
Well, I'm a coach at PearlSide Boxing Gym. We've had our gym since 1997, but I'm also the president of USA Boxing Hawaii. And, our job at USA Boxing Hawaii is to organize and promote and put on boxing events and then have our athletes advance into the national championships and move on possibly to the Olympics.
That's a big deal. And your wife was here in the studio earlier.
Yes.
She was telling me you actually were in the Olympics too. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, back in 1976, I tried out for the Olympic team, and I made the team as an alternate. So I was in the training camp with Sugar Ray Leonard, Aaron Pryor, the Spinks brothers, Leon and Michael, and that team is still considered the greatest USA boxing team at the Olympics.
That is so cool. And then the next year you tried out again, and what happened this time?
Well, 4 years later, I tried out again in the 1980 Olympics, and we're all gung-ho. We all made the team, made the trials, and we were going through the Olympic trials at the time. And just before we got to the finals, President Jimmy Carter decided to boycott the Olympics. So It just took our hopes and dreams, right out of our grasp.
Oh, that must have been so frustrating.
Yeah, it was.
But I'm glad you didn't quit. So what made you make the transition from competing to coaching?
Well, it was something that I was thinking, if I quit, if I just retire and stop boxing, then all of the knowledge, all of the skills that I've learned, all of the wonderful things that I've learned through the sport of boxing, would just disappear, would just die. And I wanted to pass it on to the kids, to the youngsters, and then give them some of the thrill, the glory, the heights that they could gain through the sport of boxing.
That makes sense. And in your opinion, what makes the difference between an actual competitor versus a coach? What's the big difference?
A competitor is more all about himself. What can I do to get better, make more money, position myself so that I can get into the big fights. And, it's all about how good I can be. A coach is more like helping somebody else, seeing them to rise up, somebody who's not skilled or who doesn't have the confidence. All of a sudden, you can speak some truth and words into his life, and all of a sudden his eyes light up and he's not afraid to try. And that's the thing, right? We want to help kids avoid the fear of success and fear of failure, to really just try.
I like that. And speaking of kids, aren't there actually a lot of kids coming into your gym now to learn and practice boxing?
Yeah, in fact, I would say 90 to 95% of the kids, both boys and girls, teenagers, young adults, and even guys as old as me, they want to come to boxing for the fitness aspect. 90 to 95% come just to get in shape, lose some weight or be active more, because, they see, the parents see their kids come home and right on electronics, instead of going outside and climbing trees and, running around. So they bring them down to our gym to, get active.
Didn't you actually start boxing when you were just a kid too?
Yeah, and it was because of bullying, and a lot of the parents nowadays, they bring the kids in because their kids are getting bullied in school, but yeah, I used to, like, as soon as the school bell would ring, I would run out. I was trying to run home before the bullies got around the corner, and they would stop the kids and take their money, whatever change they had from lunch, right? So I used to get picked on all the time around the corner. Now, my name, Eiichi Jumawan, born in Okinawa. I'm dark skinned, curly hair, and my name is hard to say, and I used to get teased and picked on a lot. And I was like really small, and I'm still small, you know. So that's why I used to get picked on. So one day when my coach, my dad was actually repairing his car in our garage, and he came into the house, and I was sitting down watching cartoons, and he looked at me, slapped me on the leg, and says, "Hey, son, why don't you come down to the gym? Make you strong, make you tough, make a man out of you." And all of a sudden, my eyes lit up. I forgot about the cartoons, you know, and I said, "Oh," in my heart, yes, when can I start? You know, and I started the next day.
I love that story. It sounds like you see a lot of kids now who are being bullied, and you're teaching them skills, but also some confidence in order to stand up for themselves and stay safe.
Yeah, exactly. You know, part of it is that, how do I say it, the victim mentality or the victim posture that kids take, because they're afraid, because they're not confident about themselves. And when they're walking in school, walking in a crowd, you know, they're all already, you know,
shrinking
head down, shrinking down. They want to avoid eye contact and stuff. So when they come to boxing, you know, I kind of coach them about, hey, stand up tall. When I'm talking to you, look at me in the eyes. When I ask you something, answer confidently, you know. So whenever I ask them anything, you know, and they don't answer, I say, "What's the answer?" They go, "Yes, coach." So, you know, just that alone, all of a sudden, starts where the conversation, they can look at me in the eye and be confident. And, you know, I tell them, once you learn boxing, because it happened to me, once you learn boxing, it's kind of like, you know, when a police officer walks into a crowded room, all of a sudden, everybody like, "Oh, better behave, better be quiet," right? When a boxer walks into a room of kids, right, and everybody around them knows he's a boxer, all of a sudden people go, "Oh, I better not pick on this guy." And they don't know if he can fight or not, but they know that he's taking boxing, you know? And that alone sometimes is just the initial step they need to start their way on being confident.
I love that. There's actually a lot I want to say to that. Because yesterday I was speaking at camp schools, and that's one of the things we talked about, is actually how you can use your body language to say, "I'm not a victim." And that's exactly what you said about straightening up your shoulders, chin in the air. That's exactly what they have to do.
Yeah.
But also growing up, my mom insisted that we had self-defense classes, that we learn how to protect ourselves. And so we didn't have a boxer near us, but there was actually a man had come from Hawaii and set up a gym and set up a self-defense dojo there in St. George, where I grew up, and his name was Aaron Ace. And he actually taught us like MMA and karate, and I saw that difference when I was walking around the school. If someone started to mess with me, I somehow through the conversation had come up, "Yeah, I know MMA," and they would always just get this like, and they'd back off, and I'd be like, "That's right, leave me alone." And so I love that difference, that you teach kids how to just stand up for themselves and protect themselves.
Yeah, and, you know, and I also teach them that when they're confronted by other people, right? Always remember, though, right, that they've got to be respectful. They've got to be confident, but be respectful. You know, stand up for yourself, but don't go out pushing people around and becoming the bully.
Yeah, you don't want to
like
be the bully.
the guys that bullied against you. Because if you become a bully yourself, then you know what? Then instead of them confronting you one at a time, a gang of them will come up and want to confront you, because they know that they can't beat you up by themselves, right?
But
so
outnumbered.
that's why don't be, you know, for lack of a better word, you know, a punk.
Yeah, you don't want to use your skills to become the villain.
Exactly.
You just want to be looking out for the other people.
Plus, it
protecting
makes
them.
you look bad, makes the sport of boxing look bad, and makes me as your coach look bad. That's what I tell them. You know, don't make me look bad.
I love that. I love that a lot. So I know when we were talking earlier, and I was asking you to come speak here on the show today, we mentioned something that came up, is that boxing is actually having a resurgence here in Hawaii. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, it's been having a resurgence over a number of years. Okay, remember when MMA started to come up? You know, everybody said, "Oh, boxing is dying because MMA is the new thing." Right? Like remember when Taibo first came out? They said, "Oh, everybody's going to quit boxing and go to Taibo," right? But what's happened is that boxing used to be considered the stigma of the roughneck, the sport that you go into and you're going to get black eyes and bloody noses and you're going to get beat up and you're going to become a thug, right? It used to be like that. We were the bad boys of all those sports. All of a sudden, MMA came up and, other than a few boxers that, are arrogant and get on TV and, the MMA, all of a sudden, people are staring in each other's faces and calling people out from the audience and things like that, right? So then, parents had a choice. Should I bring my kids to the MMA gym or to the boxing gym? And then we became the lesser of two evils, But, it's still, we got some bad apples in boxing too,
Always will.
And that's why, like in our gym too, we always tell our guys, hey, be respectful. Don't be such a bragger. Don't be going around pumping your chest out. Be humble, be nice, be helpful, especially to the new ones that are coming along.
That makes a big difference. Welcome back to Out of the Comfort Zone. I'm your host, RB Kelly, and I'm here with our guest, Coach Eiichi Jumawan. Now, when we left, we were talking about bullying, we were talking about self-confidence, we were talking about making a good name for the sport. But now I want to ask you, Coach, what happens when someone actually walks into your gym and asks to learn about coaching? Because I know a lot of people are probably
Coaching
a little
or
bit...
boxing?
And asked to learn about boxing, good question. I know a lot of people are, or at least I'm a little scared that if I were to show up on my first day, I'd be like punched in the face and then walk home crying. What actually happens when you start to learn about boxing?
Over the years, we've learned how to make it a user-friendly atmosphere when they come in, right? So, and Robin, my wife, she's the best at this. When people come in, some of them are very intimidated because of the sport. They think they're going to get punched in the face, right? So we tell them right off the bat that no, there's no contact for people that first start up with boxing. There's no contact, no hitting in the face or anything, right? And we give them what we call the first day when they come into our gym, first time orientation. So we ask them to come in a half an hour before boxing class starts, right? And we'll introduce them to a few of the people, so they'll have, a few people that they'll be their friends. And then we'll show them the basics, how to stand, how to hold their hands up, what the basic punches are, how to throw them, right? And we'll have an assistant coach or myself or my wife, Robin, will work with them for half an hour before classes starts, so that when class starts, they won't feel like, oh, everybody's staring at me because I don't know what I'm doing, and they're laughing, and I look stupid, and I want to run away and quit, Because my first day at boxing, it was like that, And I made a vow to myself, my wife, to our gym that once we start this, we're going to make that first day the best day ever in boxing. Not like the day I had when I first started.
Wow. It sounds like the first day you had left a big impression.
Yes, it did. Yeah, I went home crying, I remember all the kids were in a circle and we were all doing warm-up exercises, right? I had no orientation. So when they were doing jumping jacks, I didn't know how because I never played any organized sports. So whenever they went up, I was going down. And when they were going down, I was going up. And they're just laughing and pointing their fingers at me, And that was my initial, I felt that. Then when we were like punching the bag and everything, right? The coaches were telling me what to do, and I didn't know how to do it. I was punching like this, and everybody was laughing at me again. Then, near the end or middle of practice, the kids were going into the ring to spar, box against each other. I never seen sparring before, right? So I was like so intrigued. I was like looking into the ring, like, oh wow, look at these guys. In my mind, I was thinking, man, these guys are awesome, right? The coach mistook my enthusiasm for what I was looking at, that I wanted to jump into the ring, and I did not. So he said, Eiichi, wanna try it out? Wanna spar? Put the gloves on, get in the ring. And I wanted in my heart to say no, no, I'm scared, but I didn't want to let anybody else know I was scared, right? So acting tough. Yeah, coach, sure. But inside, I was like jello. Put the gloves on me, put the headgear on, and then I started boxing. And he did tell the guy that was boxing against me to go easy on me because it's my first time, right? but he was embarrassing me more than going easy. So when I tried to hit him, he'd jump out of the way and I'd miss, right? Then after I'd miss, I'd swing and I'd miss. Then he'd go, oh, on my forehead, tuk, tuk,
Oh.
like that. And then everybody would laugh, right?
Oh,
then, so I got angrier and angrier. Then finally I decided to just charge and rush him, right? Then he sidestepped me and I almost went out of the ring through the ropes. I was just hanging over the, the top rope on my waist. Yeah. And more and more, everybody was teasing, laughing. I could hear the kids all around the ring. And pretty soon, I tried to hold it back, but I started doing this and tears started running down my face, not because I got hit hard, but because
it was so humiliating.
Yeah, I was humiliated. So the coach finally said, oh, that's okay. Stop. That's all right, Eiichi. This is your first time, don't feel bad. But I already felt bad. Then he said, okay, you got to go sit down. So I came out of the ring. I sat down on one of the wooden benches in a corner, and I wanted to run away, but I was only 9 years old, and I drove to the gym. I rode to the gym with my coach. I didn't know where I was. It was like out of the town that I was at, so it was outside. So I went outside the door, and then I looked. All I saw was bushes and trees, and I could imagine it was dark already. So I came back into the gym, and I just sat down because I was more afraid of the monsters out there. But I sat there, and as I was sitting there watching the rest of the training, and I just, to myself, I just vowed, I'm going to come back to this gym every single day until I make that boy cry, like he made me cry, And, funny thing was, every day that boy missed practice, I was so giddy and happy and everything, right? And coach was like, what's wrong with you, Eiichi? He didn't realize, but I was thinking in my little 9-year-old mind that every day that boy missed practice, I was catching up. I was gaining a day of experience and practice. And one day I was going to catch up and be as good as him or better. It was a weird way of thinking, but I had that. So that's why now when I train my guys, right? I tell them, and I'll be yelling out with the mic on, and I'll tell them, hey, don't let your opponent out-train you or outwork you, because that came from when I was 9 years old.
And that's what eventually you did. You did outwork him. You did out-train him.
Yes.
And now look at you now. You've been on the Olympics. You've been, Hawaii's, what was the award your wife was telling me about?
The only two-time national champion from Hawaii. But that's in the elite men's division. Back in my day, when you were 17, you could go in the open division. Yeah. Now, 17 and 18 is in the youth division, right? So, yeah. When I was 17, I was fighting against 25, 30-year-old men, and I was beating them.
And so it sounds like you put in the work, and it paid off. Paid off big time. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that story made a huge impact on the way you treat people who come into your gym to make sure for them starting out, it's not a scary experience. It's not traumatizing.
And then they love the sport. They love the way the coaches guided them in and groomed them. It's a progression, right? You start off down here and you take baby steps and you get better and better and your confidence builds and you get proud of your own skills, Then if you're coached like that, you want to pass it on to the younger ones. I just want them to keep passing it forward.
I love that. And what's some of the progression that people go through from day one? They're stepping into your gym. What are some of the levels they have to progress through before they're competing?
Yeah, we call it our beginner's level. That's in our initial 5:30 class, and basically they just learn the punches that we do in boxing and some of the drills. Then they learn how to punch the bag. They learn the small speed bag, right? They learn how to skip rope, and we do these drills in number of different ways and change it up so that it's not monotonous and boring, And sometimes I'll play with the kids too, play around with the kids, let them hit me, and I'll make a miss, and then I'll, tease them, right? And so we do that, but that's the basic fitness level, right? Then there are times boxing is, how do I say, interval driven. Right? So in intervals, we'll go really hard and really fast, and then there are times when we just kind of pace ourselves, right? So that type of physical fitness training is one of the best for losing weight also. So all of a sudden the kids start to see that they get stronger, they get faster, and they start losing that baby fat, and then they like the sport. So some of them, they just love that, and they want to stay at that level. Then there are those that realize that, oh, they're better than the average guy that's in that gym. And then they'll come up to me and say, hey, coach, can I try it for the boxing team? I want to see if I can actually spar with somebody. Then they move on to our more advanced class, right, where there is more contact. And before they get hit in the face, I teach them how to block, how to duck under those punches, also how to step away, footwork and agility to avoid getting hit, right? And then when they do get hit, it's like really soft at first. I teach them how to block that punch, and I hit them softly, then they block. Then as they get better, I hit them harder and harder and harder. Yeah? And by the time you should see some of our little kids, I'll start hitting them soft, right? And then when they get better, I start hitting them real hard, and they actually get knocked from one side to the other. But they're laughing. Yeah, and they're laughing at me, and they go, coach can't knock me down, because they're proud that they can handle that. Whereas if I did that in the very first class, they would never come back.
Wow.
Yeah, and then those that want to actually compete. And when we do compete, with USA Boxing Hawaii, there's different levels. There's the novice or sub-novice, which any people that don't have any boxing experience. Then the novice division, kids that are between 1 and 10 actual boxing matches on their record. Then there's the open division, which is 11 or more boxing matches. So when you first compete, you're only going to be competing with people with 0 or 1 or 2 matches. So, more as evenly matched as possible. And we tell our referees that to watch them. These are just beginners. So if one side gets too strong or too overwhelming over the other, then the referees are instructed to stop the fight and not let them go. Our motto in USA Boxing is this: I would rather stop 1,000 fights 5 seconds too fast than 5 seconds too late.
That makes sense.
Safety is our major number one concern.
I like that. And then how else do people progress? Are there different levels that they can go through from amateur up to championship or Olympic level?
So the box at the local level, we call that, local fights, local. And then once a year, we, USA Boxing Hawaii, which I'm the president of, we put on state championships. Okay, you got to have a minimum number of bouts on your record to even qualify to compete in a state. So we don't want a beginner to step in and then get overwhelmed. Pummeled. Yeah, get pummeled. So once you got your minimum, then you can step in between your coach, your parents, and the qualifications. You enter into the state championship. If you win the state, then you can advance to the national championships, which is usually on the mainland. So some of our kids, it's the first time they ever flew on a plane, to the mainland, So that alone is an experience. Then at the national championships, right, that's an open championship. So you've got to be good enough that just in case you're boxing against the number one contender from last year, you're going to have to step in the ring with that. But see, so our kids go to the nationals, and then how they place there will spurn their desire to come back the next year. Very few people in their first year will actually win the national championships, but they'll get a taste of wow, I'm rubbing shoulders with the next Sugar Ray Leonard, the next Muhammad Ali. Yeah, and then they'll recognize, because nowadays they'll go on the internet and they'll YouTube people, right? And they'll say, who's the best guy in my weight class, in my age division? They already know before we know it, we the coaches know, right? And then when they see that they've competed well against the best in the country, their desire to come back and say, next year, my goal is to win it, not just make it to the nationals, but to win it. So once they do that, then the next in USA Boxing or amateur boxing is to make the Olympic team. Yeah. Then, there's qualifications for that also, right? You gotta not only place in the U.S. national championships, then you gotta qualify in the Olympic qualifying tournaments. Once you make the Olympic qualifying tournaments, then you get on the USA Boxing team. Once you get on the USA Boxing team, then there's international qualification now. So it's a long road, but it's achievable.
I love that. And And for those just starting out, if they're walking into your gym, I know a lot of women who were nervous to walk into a gym because we're afraid we're going to be surrounded by guys. What's the atmosphere like in your gym for people just walking in?
We have more women actually walking into our gym, more parents bringing in their daughters to say, hey, my daughter wants to try some boxing. You know, the stigma of boxing being a man's sport or a boy's sport is out the door now. Especially remember in 2012 and 2016, Clarissa Shields from Flint, Michigan won the Olympics, right? She was the only U.S. boxer to win the gold medal.
Whoa.
A female, a woman. So she's kind of like paved the way, you know, that boxing is not only a man's sport, but it's also for girls too.
I love that. And I'm excited, and you will probably see me in your gym within the next couple of weeks. But thank you, viewers, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this show, and I hope you keep tuning in next week. If you'd like to learn more, the website for Coach is here right in front of me, and you can always visit that and learn more. Thank you for watching, and I'd encourage you, whether it's for yourself, for your friends, for your kids, step out of your comfort zone, visit the gym, and see what happens. See you next week, and have a wonderful day.